Hello, everybody. I want to take a moment to remind everyone on this snowy day that the governor's highway department there has no idea how much ice it has. That was in the most recent report. That's right. Coming into this winter storm, we had no idea how much ice we had. Now, let me go through some of the topics here today. Hold on, guys, 1 second. Can you shut that door right there, please? Sorry, guys. Anyways, let me go through a couple of things here. So, first, share, subscribe on YouTube. We do have a channel on YouTube that this gets posted to. So that way, if people aren't on Facebook and you want to share it out to them, you can do that there on YouTube as far as that goes. So, first, let me also say as well, LRC is closed today to calls. You can still email your legislator. If you don't know who your legislator is, we'll have a handy thing here. We'll drop after the video a little link on this so you can find your legislator. It's super easy to do. And so I've been enjoying doing these. I've been enjoying taking a deep dive into some of the topics here and informing you guys on them. And so I'm going to keep doing it until people stop watching because, well, quite frankly, there's no reason for me to do it if I'm just talking to myself in a mirror. So let's start off with the schools. Tomorrow, HB 208 will be brought to the floor for a vote. HB 208 will be brought to the floor for a vote. HB 208 cannot pass without amendments 2 and 4. Your child will never go back to in-person schooling this year and possibly next year if HB 208 passes without amendments 2 and 4. If there's one thing to email your legislators about ever, it is this. Find out who your legislators are in the House. Email them and tell them no on HB 208 unless it has amendments 2 and 4. So no on 208 without amendments 2 and 4. It would allow schools to remain NTI only, and it additionally would kill the court case that is working in Boone County, which I have an update for you on. So Boone County case here are the great and powerful Chris Weiss decided to file a case. I heard he's working for free. Again, that rascally guy just taking it to the government as much as he can. In Boone County, he filed a case that would reopen the schools. Well, today there was a hearing on that. The hearing was about the schools wanted to dismiss the case because of Judge Shepard's stay on HB 1. The judge ruled that the case would continue onwards. They have a court date next week to be heard for evidence to be shown. This is an exciting case. Once that case occurs, as long as HB 208 doesn't pass without amendment, as long as it has amendments 2 and 4, but as long as HB 208 doesn't pass without amendments 2 and 4, that court case, if succeeds, will open up. All schools will have to start going back to in-person learning. It's a very important case for those who want to get their kids back to school. It's a very important case for if you care about the kids. So no on HB 208 without amendments 2 and 4. Now, if you try to talk to Regina Huff, who proposed the bill originally about the bill because she didn't read it or something, I don't know, or maybe it's just because her and the teachers unions get along so well. But she will say it's a funding bill. As we went over yesterday, it has a funding component to it. But more importantly, it allows schools to remain NTI, ignoring state statutes. And that is a problem. And we can't have that. So no on HB 208 without amendments 2 and 4. On the subject of HB 1, I dropped a link there, the Linktree link. You can follow that link, one, to our YouTube channel, to our Twitter, too, as well, if you want to follow that, but also to some petitions you can also donate to. If you want to donate to the impeachment costs, that's probably going to be about a $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 cost. If you want to donate to that, you can follow that link and donate to it. But also, if you follow that link, it'll take you to the Reopen Kentucky petition. What is that? Well, HB 1 passed, an HB1 passed that would allow businesses to basically, as long as they're following some minimum standards, create their own opening guidelines. So, I could have, for me in my coffee shop, I could have whatever capacity I wanted to have. I could have, as long as they could stay at least 6 feet apart, it was up to me to set my capacity. There's no curfews. There was no masking rules as far as that goes outside of suggestions. For us, we did have some situations where we would wear masks. And so it left it up to the businesses to decide. But also, more importantly, it had the businesses post what they were going to do on the door. So that way you, the consumer, could make the decision as you come up there. So what happened is Judge Shepard came out. He put a stay on HB1 taking effect. It was supposed to take effect immediately. He's put a 30-day hold on it. Now, the dirty thing about what Judge Shepard did, when you understand our legislative calendar, is that if HB1 progresses forward into the courts and the law is found unconstitutional because of one line in there, they will not have time to fix it. Now, the argument would be is that the argument behind it might be that the terminology is off or one line's off. This is kind of what the Kentucky Supreme Court had been doing priorly. However, because of the timetable that Judge Shepard has put on this, it has made it to where if it is found unconstitutional due to one line, the legislation, because the legislators, because they'll be out of session, can't fix the bill. And they do this knowingly, and it's kind of gross, but it is what it is. And so we need that to pass. Also, that goes into impeachment here we'll talk about in a second as well. Also, we have no to SB 229. That's the red flag gun law. We've all been seeing that the Biden administration has been coming out with some interesting pushes to ban guns, essentially, tax rules, gun confiscation, things like that. What would be real nice is if our legislators actually wanted to do something to fight for us, if they didn't want to, just keep saying the same old to thinking we'll keep just reelecting them, which once again we'll talk about here in a second. They would have passed a federal gun law nullification law. What is that? Well, federal gun law nullification is a law that states pass that hinges upon the 10th Amendment. So the 10th Amendment of the Constitution states that no powers enumerated into the Constitution of the federal government shall be assumed to be given to the states. So what federal gun law nullification laws do is a state can pass a law saying that if the federal government passes a law saying, for example, you can't have assault rifles, which is an interesting term. I'm always curious how they define assault rifles, because anybody who knows anything about guns knows that when you go into the descriptor, there's a lot of guns that you wouldn't classify as an assault rifle that fit some of the scientific ways, and then if it's unscientific, if you want to call it that, I don't know what you'd call it, it's just based on how a gun looks, which I don't believe in laws that relegate things based on how they look. That doesn't make a lot of sense. So federal gun law nullification law would be a great law that the Kentucky legislators should have passed. The time to insert bills has since passed, so they can't get it in place. But it would make it to where any gun laws passed by the federal government would be an issue. So, in fact, they could make a law that says that the federal government cannot come in and confiscate your firearms following a federal gun law. Now, if so, that's a way to trigger protection. So rather than you, the person, if the federal government came and said, hey, I'm taking away your assault rifle, and then you decide you're going to take it to court to argue its constitutionality, you now have to pay for that as an individual. If the state would pass a federal gun law nullification law, what in turn that would do is that would mean that the government has to immediately go to the state to argue about it, and because of the nature of that court case, it would immediately then go to the Supreme Court. So if anything, it makes it to where the citizens don't have to fight as much for your rights, but instead your state can be defending your rights. So I would love to have seen a federal gun law nullification law dropped in this session. However, it was not dropped in this session, of course, but Perhaps we'll see one next year. Who knows? Maybe somebody will run on it and then never do it, but we'll see what happens. So, and then we have a yes to HB 360 that would return any. And as a reminder, guys, LRC once again is closed today. I'll drop a link so you can find your legislator, but you can still email them, blow up those email inboxes, crash those email inboxes. Remember, voting is not when your voice is heard. It's when repercussions for not listening to you occurs. Your voice is heard during the legislative session when you're emailing and you're calling to tell them what you want your legislators to do. So, yes to HB 360, return any license that the governor has taken away due to COVID. Obviously, we have a feeling about that, but there's a lot of other businesses out there that could really use that support. So, let's talk about impeachment here as well. So, to be quite honest, what's going on with impeachment is the Republican Party of Kentucky loves them some Beshear. They don't love them Beshear in the sense that they actually like the guy. They love them some Beshear because, well, Beshear's good for business. He's good for business because he sucks so much and everybody hates him so much that the Republican Party is able to sit there and be like, yeah, we're a crap sandwich, but do you want this bigger crap sandwich over here? And so it helps them forward their power for Beshear to stay in office. It helps them fundraise. It helps them win elections. They want Beshear to stay in office because they're able to set up their legislative side of things however they want to. The problem is that what they're doing now is playing politics with people's lives. Let's be really honest here. And this is not hyperbole. This is not an overstatement. Governor Beshear's decisions have killed people. It just has. It's killed people. And you can sit there and say, well, he's doing a real good job of defending us from COVID. There's a lot of stats out there that would disagree that he's done that great of a job. And there's a lot of key stats to show what the repercussions have been. Because at a certain point, we do have to look at COVID policy and say it is not, the costs are too great, right? So, of course, it would be super safe for us all to just stay in a pod and never go out and about and never travel around. But instead, we take risks every day because the cost of staying in a pod would be so great that it's not worth it. The cost would be our ability to be a human being. So the cost is too great, and so we don't do that. And so there's a certain point where the costs are too great, and you know, I don't know. Everybody's, I guess, when you argue about has the governor been right or been wrong, what you're really arguing is how many lives am I okay with him trading, not saving? Because once again, running the numbers, if every single Kentuckian under the age of 30 caught COVID, it would, every single one, it would we'd see only 43 deaths. Now, 43 deaths is a lot, don't get me wrong. That's far less or right on track with a lot of other diseases that we see all the time. And in fact, to the catch to survival rate, under 30 states here in Kentucky that the flu is significantly worse to us than COVID is. And so, you know, we would definitely argue that deciding to have those people, because if 43 people total would die, if everybody caught COVID under 43, the minute you say that 44 people have died due to COVID policies, and I think it's pretty obvious, I think you have to have a certain level of cognitive dissonance, a certain level of inability to be honest with yourself. If you can't sit there and say, you know, that over 43 people have died due to COVID lockdown policies under 30. You just have to be, I don't know. You have to have some really serious issues. You cannot look at the fact that suicide is massive rate. You cannot look at the fact that you can't get 72-hour holds right now. You've got 3-week waiting lists for child therapists. We are massively, I'm seeing an increase in overdose deaths. Suicides, like I said, are hugely high, not to mention some of the other issues we're seeing. You can't look at that and say, hey, you know, that's That's okay. I'm okay with seeing that as long as we save a couple people over here. That is trading lives. And so the real conversation is about whether or not he should be able to trade those lives. And of course, we believe he shouldn't be. And the Republican Party of Kentucky ran on a platform stating they do not believe it is Andy Beshear's place to be trading lives like this. What they ran on when they ran on in 2020, they ran on a platform saying, hey, we're going to rein in the governor for you. We're going to control him. We're going to get him under control for you. And you're going to go ahead and be safe to do that. We're going to, not safe to do that, sorry. We're going to rein him in and we're going to control him for you and you're not going to have to worry about it. Well, the problem is that if you are unsuccessful in reining him in because of HB1 and SB1 being challenged in courts and then it's found unconstitutional, then what have you done for us? You haven't actually done anything. And impeachment is something the people that voted for you want by your own admittance. You know it's something they want. Earlier this year, I was at a meeting where Damian Thayer was there and he came out and said something along the lines of he wasn't going to impeach. And I can tell you that entire room wanted to tear him apart. It is obvious to anybody in the Republican Party of Kentucky that the voters that vote for them overwhelmingly support impeaching Beshear. They know that. But they want to leave him there so they can keep fundraising. Well, the problem is, once again, going to children committing suicide, mothers going homeless, living in cars with children because the unemployment failure is going on, right? They think they're going to be able to raise up donations. And so they sit there, the Republican Party of Kentucky sits there saying, I'm okay with that because it's good for me. It's good for business. And that is morally wrong. And it's politics. You don't expect them to do necessarily what's morally right all the time. But at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, how do we stop rewarding this behavior? Well, the only way we can do it is through the primary process. I know I hear a lot of people say, well, what about third parties and everything else? Yeah, that's a great conversation to have. And one of these days here, maybe after the legislation's out of session and I don't have to spend a lot of time talking about what is actually happening, we can have a conversation, discussion on the philosophies of politics and everything else, but instead, let's focus on actually getting some things done. So, what we can do is let the Republican Party of Kentucky know we're aware of what they're doing. We can let them know we know what you're doing. It's gross, it's disgusting, and you should be ashamed of yourself that you're willing to let children keep committing suicide. You're willing to let mothers keep going homeless in cars. You're willing to keep letting people OD. You're willing to let the unemployment failures continue. You're willing to let him violate our rights that we then have to rise up and fight against, all because you want to raise a couple extra bucks for your next election year. That's a problem, and we need to stand up to it. And the way we stand up to is by emailing them and letting them know we won't allow it, letting them know we will not support a single one of their candidates that they run that will not stand up for our rights and stand up for liberty and stand up for the freedoms that the Republican Party says they stand for. They say they're the party of the Constitution, but yet when it comes time to protect the Constitution, where are they? Where are they? It's in their platform. They are the party of the Constitution. That is in their platform. Where are they when it comes time to protect the Constitution? If you can't stand up to your own party's platform, you can't stand up for that, you can't stand for anything. We have to let them know. We know what they're doing. It's gross. We will not stand for it. We will vote for anybody who's against you in the primary, of anybody who doesn't stand for their own platform. And then on top of that, and if you still win the general, we just won't show up and vote for you. How about that? And I know what you're saying. A lot of people are like, man, that's dangerous, Andrew. You can't be saying that because the Democrats can't win. This is how they're playing with you. That we have to demand more from our own party. So that way, from the Republican Party, we have to demand more from them. So that way, we can start getting them to actually do what they said they would do. If we keep rewarding bad behavior, that's what we'll keep getting. And we've gotten to a point now where we have to worry about our federal government trampling all over us. We have to worry about a governor trampling all over us. Meanwhile, all because the Republicans have done nothing but keep letting the march forward of I wouldn't say socialism, the march forward of believing you can take other people's stuff, the believing that other people owe you something, the believing that you somehow have a right to another person's property, life, fruits of their labor. that march forward of thought we've been keep letting happen, and we're not holding them accountable for it because we keep voting for them because they say, well, look at this boogeyman over here. They're letting the boogeyman in the door a little bit to keep you afraid. We have to stand up to that. And the first way you can do is by emailing RPK, Republican Party of Kentucky. I'll drop the email address here in a bit and let them know you know what they're doing. It's gross and you won't allow it. Now, let's also discuss masks real quick. And I want to discuss that only because, it's always fun when we make a mask post of some sort. It is always funny to me the amount that it just completely goes over the heads of everybody reading it. It just goes over their heads. They do not understand it. Okay, here's the first thing. Do I believe masks work to help stop the spread of disease? Me personally, reading everything, knowing everything I'm seeing and everything else, I believe they do. I believe absolutely masks work to help stop spreading the diseases. The problem is let's go over mask mandates, which is a form of government force. So what happens if you don't wear a mask? So if you're in any other place other than Brood, and I'm saying this because Brood has successfully had 3 mass citations dismissed because of our pushback on them. So, but if you go into any other place and they let you go in and you're not wearing a mask, well, what happens is the health department shows up without asking any questions and they'll cite that business. And if you get cited 4 times, I believe on the 4th time, they revoke your food license if you're a restaurant. Okay. So that's what happens. So if somebody's not wearing a mask in there, the health department can come in and revoke your food license after the 4th time of them catching somebody in there not wearing a mask. Now, you say, what's that got to do with it? Well, first off, using government force is an unacceptable occurrence. So what you're saying is I want to force masks to the point I'm willing to take an entire person's life work from them, because somebody else came into their business and didn't wear a mask. So not even their choice, but somebody else made a choice and the business owner allowed it. And because of that, I want everything taken from them. That's what you're saying when you're saying you support mask mandates. Additionally, which is extremely selfish thing to say, I am so worried, I'm so worried about COVID. I am not willing to stay home. No, I'm essential. What do you essentially do? I work on the ABC board at the state. That sounds real essential to me during a pandemic. Anyways, I'm an essential employee, so I can't stay home. So because I can't stay home and I'm essential, I need you to stay home, or I need you to wear a mask out. I need you to do this for me. And if you don't do it, I need somebody to be punished. So in this case, because I'm afraid, I need you to wear a mask. And then if you don't wear a mask, I want that person's business taken from them. That is tyranny. That is the problem. The problem isn't the government even asking us to wear masks when I make a post about this. The problem in my pushback is that you believe that your fear should dictate that somebody else should lose everything. Now, also talking about masks, what I said earlier, do I believe masks can help stop the spread of COVID? Absolutely. Here's a couple of things, though. First, you have to have COVID stop the spread of it. So my first question is are we, and I know this seems real confusing to people, but I've been told that if we get COVID, we have some immunity to it for some time. So the whole concern I was told about COVID is I'm protecting others from myself. So in order to be protecting others from myself, that would mean at that point in time that I'm protecting others from myself, I have to have COVID. So what you're saying is I need to wear, I've need to wear a mask anywhere in public for the last 8 months, because somewhere in that 8 months, for 2 weeks, maybe 2 weeks, I might have had COVID and I could have been spreading it. Now, if I get COVID And if I develop I'm now, as I'm told, based upon how everything works, I now have an immunity to it for at least a short amount of time. At least I've heard them say, well, after 6 months or 3 months, you may get it again or something. But for those 3 months after I get COVID, can I now not wear a mask? And oh, by the way, the first way you know that there's not a large amount of people that are getting COVID than getting it again, because they don't talk about it. If getting COVID and getting it again was a real concern that's really occurring in a large amount of numbers, they would be talking about that all the time, because that would be frightening to everybody, wouldn't it? You got this disease twice, 3, 4, 5 times. That would scare the heck out of everyone. So that's first. I don't believe that's happening in mass numbers, that you're recatching it, because they'd be talking about it a lot to keep scaring you. But, so, now if I get COVID, can I not wear a mask after that? Or do you need me to keep wearing one? Additionally, when it comes to masks, when I said masks, they haven't done a study of a mask that then has been sitting in your purse for 2 days that you then pull out and put on, or has been in your pocket or in your truck or wherever, and all of a sudden you put it on after it be sitting out for 2-3 days, and how detrimental that is to your health compared to catching COVID is, or the risk of COVID. They haven't done that. When they do all their study about masks, it is a perfectly clean, sanitized, well-fitting mask versus the disease. Of course, that's going to protect you somewhat. But the point is that when you require it everywhere, people stop wearing it carefully because you're requiring it everywhere. I'm putting it on because I have to, not because I want to, not because it's sanitary, or I don't have an option. I don't have the ability to make that choice because you've mandated I do it now. So now I end up wearing a mask in a lot of unsafe conditions and unsafe situations, and I'm just throwing it on just to be compliant with your order, and your order is for me to wear it everywhere. So I end up putting on a dirty mask that's been sitting in my pocket for 2-3 days, or in a truck or what have you, just so I can comply, which is in turn more dangerous to my health than catching COVID would be. Listen, wear a mask when you think you need to. I'm not telling people not to. But if you're going to put on a mask, make sure it's sanitized, properly fitting, and use some brains about when to wear it. For an example, if I show up to an assisted living home and they request me to wear a hazmat suit, I'd do it. I'd probably do it. I'd do it. Especially if they told me ahead of time, hey, you can come, you can visit your grandma, but you got to put on a hazmat suit. We got that COVID going around. We want to make sure it's safe. I would do it in a heartbeat, because we know there's been a lot of deaths there, and we know that's a high danger zone. Right? If I'm cleaning up after a COVID outbreak, so let's say we have a COVID outbreak happen somewhere, and I'm going and I'm sanitizing, cleaning up after it. Yeah, I'm going to take extra protective steps because I'm not an idiot. Let's say, for an example, there's a COVID testing facility out in front of Brood, a little ways away. It's like one of those shipping containers that lives off tax dollars. The other day, before all this, the person that's there testing for COVID came in, not wearing a mask, and we told him, hey, you got to put on a mask or you got to step out. You specifically. Why? Because they're around COVID all day long. Yeah. You should wear a mask when you're out and about. Be aware of it. But at the same time, be aware of the unsanitary conditions. And at the same time, if you're so worried about it, stay home. And at the same time, now 3 at the same times, the government shouldn't be taking everything from somebody because you have a fear because you're afraid. And a lot of these fears are very, very irrational. I'm sorry. If you have a child, if you're under 20, 30 years old and you're afraid of COVID, that is an irrational fear. It's irrational. If you're afraid to send your kids to school because you're afraid they might catch COVID and die, that's an irrational fear. We have had only 2 deaths under 20 in the entire state from COVID. If you're worried about your kid dying from COVID and because they go to school, that's extremely, extremely irrational. All I'm saying when we make our posts about masks or we're making fun of the mandates or anything else, what we're saying is science left the building a long time ago. We all know it. Irrational fear has taken over. And what we're saying is to stop letting irrational fear lead the way, but instead use your own common sense, and common sense just dictates pulling out something that's been rolling around on the floorboard of your car for the last 2-3 days and slapping it on your mouth just so you can walk into a Walmart. Doesn't seem like the most healthiest thing in the world. All right, guys, once again, you follow us on YouTube. We post that link initially, that link tree. Sign the reopen petition. Get other businesses to sign that reopen petition. What that does is on March 15th, we're saying, hey, we're going to follow HB1, whether the Judge Shepard or whether, no matter what the courts say about it, we're following HB1. It was a dutifully, correctly passed law. We're going to follow it. And we're going to get as many people to join us as possible in following that law, because that is the law. And we're going to dare them to tell us it's not, and dare them to come tell us and tell everybody that is joining in on this. And so far, we have 500 people that have joined in, a lot of business owners. You don't just have to be a business owner to do it. Share it with everybody. And saying, hey, we're going to stand up and we're just going to do a little bit of quote unquote civil disobedience, even though we're following a law that was legally passed. But share that out there. Donate to the impeachment effort if you so wish and you can. You've got the extra money and you feel like it, donate to it. Obviously we come out of pocket for the impeachment cost. The impeachment cost is not being paid for by the taxpayer. It is being paid for by myself and 2 others. And so do what you can. Follow us on YouTube, Twitter, all that stuff. Great. Good stuff. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.